Welcome to Weymouth Town Council Planning and Licensing. It's lovely to see so many public participants and the two Chickerell councillors, John and Jean. Thank you.
I'm not here as a Chickerell councillor. I'm here as a resident of Weymouth.
No, it's nice to see you, John. Nice to see you, Jean. We'll start off straight away with item 1. Apologies for absence.
We've received apologies from Councillor James, Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Orrell, but he's been substituted by Councillor Lambert.
Okay, if we could have a proposer and seconder to accept those apologies. So we Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor Young. All those in favour of the apologies and substitution? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Just item 2 is declarations of interest. I'd just like to ask, does any councillor tonight have any declarations of interest on any of the items tonight? And I would just say that if you do come across anything, don't hesitate to shout up. Item 3.
I did email it ahead that 12B Icing Road, I am friends with the owners. Non-pecuniary interest.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Okay. We go on to item 3. I trust we've all read the minutes of the last meeting. Does anybody wish to bring up any items that are on that? No, so if I could have a proposer and a seconder to accept those minutes, please. So proposed by Councillor Wakeling, seconded by Councillor Bell. All those in favour? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? Okay. We now come to item 4, which is public participation. Yeah. And I think we have some members of the public who wish to speak. And who would like to go first? Yeah.
Right. Thank you for the opportunity to address your planning committee. I'm here to talk about planning item PFUL 2023-04-657, which is a battery energy storage system. It is proposed for a piece of land close to the grid and the power generation plant by near the football ground. I'm here because I have some deep-rooted concerns about safety, and I'm fearful for if there should be a fire at this site. I'm fearful that what could happen with regard to residents of Weymouth. Because if the wind's blowing in the wrong direction, that plume will head towards South Hill, Westbourne and Rotherwell and that way. So, and having studied the planning application in great detail, there are some major issues which have been highlighted by other authorities. The National Planning Practice Guidelines refer, which is on the government website, refer that local planning authorities should be encouraged to consider the guidance published by the National Fire Chiefs Council. And one or two other things that they suggest this site does not have. The National Fire Chiefs Council would like to see 2 separate access points, roads capable of accommodating fire service vehicles, a perimeter road with passing places suitable for fire service vehicles. It would like to see that a recommendation is with 6 metres between each container. The planning application only has 3 metres. The reason why they want 6 metres is because should there be an incident, the fire authority needs to have safe access with personnel between the containers in order to lay up hoses and get to where the problem is. So, and also it shouldn't be within 25 metres of any residential dwelling. Now you've got houses on the opposite side of Cold Harbour, plus there is not shown on the map, not shown on the plan at the present point in time, there is a planning application coming forward from Persimmons for land that is very, very close to this. So they're the general concerns, and I just fear for the safety of residents. No doubt you will hear other evidence that why it's not a good idea, but I hope that you will now, because I know from the end it wasn't up for discussion, I hope it is going to be up for discussion by this authority, and they can make their recommendation with regard to whatever they feel. But thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, John.
Good evening, councillor. My name is John Fannin. I used to work at Portland as director at one time. I'd like to just follow on from John about the Terra proposal that's Oak Cove Park. Drawing on my own physics background, my interest in Terra's application stems from concerns about safety, the safety of the battery energy storage system. Everybody calls it best. The best proposed at Cold Harbour is supposed to have a power output of 400 megawatts, supplied by over 2 million lithium ion cells. At least 2 million, we're not quite sure, could be 2, could be even 3 million. Stored in 600 industrial containers, and you've seen those on the screen there. Each container would hold 3,500 cells at least. The energy capacity for the whole system would be 2,400 megawatt hours. Energy is the important parameter, meaning that the BESS would supply 400 megawatts for 6 hours. Now compare that with the power station, which is with 400 megawatts, that would supply 400 megawatts all the year. So that's the difference between the two. Now, lithium cells can burst into flame if electrically overcharged, electrically over discharged, or overheated. And if a single cell bursts into flame, it can the heat generated can ignite adjacent cells, and you can get what's called thermal runaway, and the whole container can end up in flames. And inflammable gases, that's hydrogen, methane, ethylene, carbon monoxide, would be emitted. And also a very toxic gas called hydrogen fluoride would be emitted. And the other thing too is very difficult to put out, because when you pour lithium on water on lithium, it produces hydrogen, and of course that adds to the flames. And in this year alone, there have been 15 BESS fires. Those are the ones that have been reported. BESS fire in Liverpool in 2020, it took 11 hours to extinguish it. And people in the vicinity were told to shelter in place. And that was the Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service. And a BESS fire in Moorabool, Victoria, Australia, that occurred in 2021. And a container burst into flames and ignited an adjacent container, and the whole caboodle burned for 3.5 days. And the country fire authority imposed a shelter in place over 30 square kilometres and up to 9 kilometres from the source of the flames. Now, it's interesting that the energy in those 2 containers that are burning is equivalent to the energy in just one of those containers that are proposed for Cold Harbour. So this gives a very good example of what could happen if a fire started in one of those containers at Cold Harbour, and what the effect would be on the local area here. Now, the BESS at Moorabool has only got 1/5 of the capacity of the one proposed at Cold Harbour, but it is also in an area which is very, very sparsely populated. There's another very large BESS in California, which has got 2/3 of the capacity proposed at Cold Harbour, and that is in an area of wildlife sanctuary and a marine sanctuary, so there's hardly anybody there. Yet Statera are proposing to produce what could be the largest BESS in the world in the middle of a residential area. And to our mind, this is just great. I invite you to go with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, I'm Darren Findlay. I live on Cold Harbour and I live directly north of the northeast corner of the proposed site. So I'm living at about 150 metres away from where they're proposing to do that. That site is on the northeast, north to south, Vadapole Lake Green Corridor. Bottom of that then links into the east to west Green Corridor, all of which were identified by the Chickerell Neighbourhood Plan, which was adopted because it supported and supplemented the local plan for West Dorset and Weymouth and Portland. So vastly important areas. The development is also out the boundary development area as well. So they're talking about destroying a huge swathe of land for this development. Now, I'm one of hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions, who are across the nation, and I'm sure pretty much everyone here would be as well. I believe it's a duty to live a cleaner, less materialistic and environmentally aware life. In some instances, easily achievable. You eat less meat, grow your own fruit and veg if possible. You recycle, upcycle clothes, possessions, save water, use energy more efficiently. What is difficult for pretty much everybody is how to be more user-friendly with daily transportation and the use of technology. We seem to be trapped between a rock and a hard place with these issues. They affect our daily lives physically and emotionally, and it's a conundrum for the vast majority to how to navigate these in such a way as to be able to reduce the impact on the environment and the natural world, but still be able to be part of a workplace environment, provide for families and support friends, and be part of the greater community. And that community is really important. The struggle will leave a lot of people stressed as they try and fulfill what they see as their obligation to try and secure a safer future for the planet. As Statera have promoted the battery energy storage system as a green initiative. It may ring true in the Western developed countries. We see just the end result: a smarter telephone, a smarter TV, an electric vehicle. But if the truth be known, the reality of these readily available technologies is far murkier. The production of lithium, the cobalt, the manganese, the nickel, they're pretty much all mined in repressive regimes. Democratic Republic of Congo, China. China is possibly the biggest supplier and owner of mining companies around the world. So there's a human rights issue behind lithium in particular. We don't see it, it's not touted, and it's not displayed to the public, because to do that would sound a death knell to a lot of these companies, and they don't want it to be known. An example of lithium: to produce by excavation, 1 ton of lithium requires approximately 2.2 million litres of water. When produced by way of a brine evaporation pond, approximately 21 million litres of water is required every day. So you can see that just the use of water alone is destroying communities in the country of origin. They're displacing people, displacing thousands of people, and these people are being forced to migrate. They migrate to somewhere where they've got no work, no homes. That causes a further problem for the planet. There's no national requirement at the moment for a BESS. There's no statutory legislation for it. And last year, Elon Musk, he made a statement on his personal social media where he invited entrepreneurs to join in the frenzy of lithium refinery, because in his words, it's like minting money. So there's a real dark side to the technology that we all take for granted. The land proposed is approximately 74 acres of land. And just as a basic calculation, it may or may not be exact, 600 20-foot shipping containers, all coming from China. If each container uses 4 tons of concrete in its base,
2,400 tons of concrete. That equates to 1,000 cubic meters of concrete. Each cubic meter contains 635 kilograms of carbon. That means that the development site would generate 635 tons of carbon. And to offset that, to offset 1 ton, it's estimated it takes between 31 to 46 trees over the lifespan of a tree to take away 1 ton of carbon. If you look at the mitigation that Statera have put in at the north of that site, it shows nothing of that. You would have to be putting in almost 12,000 trees over the period of a lifetime of a tree to try and mitigate solely on the concrete alone. So
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to stick to planning reasons and
noise, 600 shipping containers. Each one of them will be giving off a noise. At 1 meter, they give off between 75 and 85 decibels. You've also got the transformers that go there to operate, the cooling systems. That noise with the prevailing southwesterly wind, southerly wind, is just going to be 600 of those containers making that noise at night. They're on green corridors. They're on land of local landscape importance. There was a recent traffic survey done on Cold Harbour. The results came out and it said that they estimate that on average 249 HGVs use Cold Harbour daily. I've lived on Cold Harbour for 17 years. I barely see one a day. So the traffic survey that was conducted, I cannot determine where they got their figures from. And no one else who lives on Cold Harbour can see that either. So there's something not right about the information that's been distributed. 249 HGVs on Cold Harbour just doesn't make sense. It's not right. So it's a land that's outside the development boundary. It's green corridors, land of local landscape importance. It's a land that was identified in the Chickerell neighbourhood plan to protect, to enhance for the community. This is a money grab by Statera, nothing more. And I urge you to deny it, please.
thank you very much. Hello, sir.
Good evening.
So hopefully
Chair.
no repeating.
There's a slight, perhaps repetition, but only slight. Good evening, Chair. Good evening, councillors. My name is John Perrott. 500 signing a petition, 2 MPs, local and county councillors, a town council, a parish council, 100 residents. What have they got in common? They've all voiced concern or objected to this application before you. Why? Well, yes, certainly because of the risk of fire, explosion and toxic smoke so close to Chickerell and South Hill. We know the applicant has systems to mitigate against this risk, but they can't eliminate it. And how big does a risk have to be before this BESS is just another statistic on the growing list of fires? This BESS would certainly be the biggest in Europe. And if and when it becomes another statistic, the effects could be disastrous. There are a lot of other reasons why people are up in arms. I'll go through some of them, and I'll try to quote some policy numbers to you. As Phil has pointed out, the proposal is in an area of protected landscape. As such, the development would be in conflict with policy ENV1. The policy doesn't say protected, but it's okay to build an unmanned quasi-industrial development on a site about the size of the Granby Industrial Estate if you mitigate against the harm it causes. That's not protection. The development fails to take into account the area's local identity and distinctiveness and is contrary to ENV10. The site is outside of the development boundary and thus contrary to SUS2. You might think that because it's a renewable energy source, it's outside the scope of this policy. Well, there's nothing renewable about this proposal. Phil has pointed out there's nothing green about it. I'm saying there's nothing renewable about it. This BESS isn't connected to any renewable source. It will charge itself directly from the grid when power is cheap. And as it charges itself, it doesn't know where or how the power it's using is being generated. It could all come from fossil fuels. And when it's charged itself and demand for power is high and electricity is expensive, it sells power back to the grid through a variety of schemes, obviously the profit. So it isn't renewable, and such too does apply. The Environment Agency has pointed out that this site sits on an aquifer. There is an unacceptable risk of toxins and pollutants entering watercourses, the River Way, Radical Lake, into the harbour, and then into the sea. And those toxins are caused by water trying to extinguish a fire. The toxins are hydrogen fluoride. And as you've heard this evening, that is one of the most toxic substances known to man. Do you want that in the sea, along the beach? The development will destroy good land that currently grows cereal crops. The LPA needs to uphold ENV 8 and steer development away from BMV, good grade agricultural land. This proposal would create adverse effects to the amenity of residents, and is thus contrary to ENV 16. Just consider the noise, dust, and air pollution during an 18-month construction period when that hillside that you see before you is terraced. They're going to cut it in so that it can't be returned to agricultural land afterwards. Please consider the human rights of the residents of Southfield and Chickle. Will their mental health be affected as they worry about their safety and well-being? Councillors, this proposed development is too big. It's in the wrong place. It contravenes the NPPF. It contravenes local policy plan, local plan policies. It contravenes Chickle neighbourhood plan policies. I urge you to provide a detailed objection to Dorset Council and safeguard the residents of Weymouth.
Thank you very much. Is that everybody?
Good evening, Chairman. My name is John Pate, and I'm actually a resident of Nottington. When the Statera gave their consultation, I thought that I gave forward, I asked 4 questions, and at that consultation, they couldn't answer them. On another matter, that was mentioned on the gentleman here mentioned noise. I asked them, they had a display board saying that they'd done noise assessment and the noise was actually within planning guidance. I said, out of interest, what are the figures for the noise you came up with at the boundary? They said, well, we haven't finished it yet. I said, but your display board says that you've done it. Oh, well, yes, but we haven't done it yet. That raised an alarm bell. But then asked various other questions. The one that worried me most was actually, what actually is the risk of battery fire on this? And what actually is the consequences for the fire? So what I'm going to talk about now is what I've looked at on this, which I don't think perhaps others have, and just to give you a feel for how significant that is. I asked them about the probability of fires. Statera said, neither the manufacturers nor the users keep that information. So they couldn't tell me what was the probability of a fire occurring. Might be trivial, but they couldn't tell me. I just questioned why not. I asked their fire consultant also, and he said basically to me, trust me, I used to work for the fire brigade. Well, that isn't an answer to the question on what is the risk we're looking at here. So I then contacted the Building Research Establishment, which is now known as BRE. They're the national testing house for construction safety, and in particular for fire safety. They have a wing there, which is the Building Fire Research Establishment at Garston. That looks at all things like the Grenfell Towers fire, or issues like that. They do the research on them. They said to me, they agreed that proper research into lithium best is needed, but they've been unable to engage with the industry to get such research work undertaken. That to me is alarming. Why? We know most of these things are made in China, but that shouldn't stop the UK undertaking its own review of UK standards in what is a densely occupied country. We haven't got the wild open spaces of Australia and America. We don't have that luxury. I then contacted the Department for Energy and Security and Net Zero through Richard Drax, my MP. And they've come back and said they are strengthening planning guidance and proactively engaging with the fire and rescue services. That's ongoing, hasn't happened yet, they're doing it. They're consulting on a review of regulations focused on placing batteries on the market as waste products. They're working with Health and Safety Executive to reassess the risk profile of battery systems. Wow. They're working with the Environment Agency to amend the environmental permitting regulations to include best sites. So this hasn't happened yet, and my understanding is these things might start to happen in the autumn. He also stated that he confirmed in Parliament that planning practice guidance has been updated to encourage storage developers to engage in fire and rescue, and the guidance published by the National Fire Chiefs Council. Well, this application does not comply with that. There's somebody else can point it out. So this is the changes that the ministry is making is after this application went in. Also announced that DEFRA intends to consult on battery storage systems in the environmental permitting regulations. I'm not sure what that means. So I then contacted the Wilton Dorset Fire and Rescue Services. Very helpful gentleman, and he's the person who guides them on this. He said that firefighters make familiarisation visits to these facilities, but will rely on Dorset Environmental Health Department to arrange air quality monitoring and determine which areas need to be evacuated or residents to stay indoors. So if these things go up, they send environmental health out to say where is it safe to be. That also informs the firefighters on where they can safely go without breathing apparatus. If they haven't got that, they have to go with breathing apparatus, chemical suits, and have a decontamination unit for them to safely fight a fire. And as somebody else had said, actually, the arrangements Satira proposed there don't even meet the fire brigade's own guidance. Really worrying. So I asked them what they considered to be the worst case scenario in terms of fire affecting proposed site and the circumstances they consider as a trigger events for that scenario. You couldn't answer that. How far would lockdown need to be extended for how long? Couldn't answer that, or didn't answer that. In the event of domino failure, where one unit triggers another, how far would you expect fire to spread without the fire attendants of the fire brigade? How quickly would that happen? Couldn't answer that. What priority be given to a fire at this site if what priority be given it if they had to pull off another fire event? Wouldn't answer that. What we do know is the fire brigade give their priority where life is immediately at risk. Now this site will not be manned, and so in that regard, they would only attend unless there was a policy that led them to do so, or if there was evidence that somebody on site was at risk for it. Now, it can only come with environmental health say, we've got a plume, it's that bad, it's endangering people. Then spoke to the environmental health. This is in writing.
You've got 1 minute, I'm
Okay.
afraid. You
And
could,
they've said they have no expertise in the matters I raised and would not be able to comment on that. That to me is damning. Environmental health have no expertise. So look at that. Look at the issues of the chemicals given off, the hydrogen fluoride, and that really alarms me. I've got here a whole load of other notes which people are very welcome to come and see me afterwards, but publish things which are saying exactly the same. That people competent researching in China and in this country are saying hydrogen fluoride is very dangerous, batteries very dangerous, much more work needed on it.
right,
So in essence, I think, other than what others are saying, I think the chemical risk goes right over weight actually with the size. If that goes out, you lose weight. Thank you.
thank you very much. Good evening. Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to propose that we move the planning application from item 6 into item 5, if that's okay with everybody. So, yeah, proposed by me, seconded by Councillor Moore. Yeah. And that's going to be moved into item 5.
And
Yeah. So we can now move into item 5. And we'll discuss that first planning application. Which is,
We're not doing best first then.
yeah, we're doing best, yeah, I'm just, yeah, it's the East Chickwell Court Farm. So any councillors?
Kick off if I may.
Yes,
So I live on Dorchester Road and receive various leaflets through the door. Mr. Patton is one of my residents in Nottingham. And I'm aware of the local concern of this, all this matter. So I have done a little bit of digging research myself, bear with me. The BBC had a whole article on this, but it was pretty useless. The Hansard report of the solar farms and battery storage debate that took place last year was useless. It concluded that such land should be used for farming, and that was the conclusion it made. It didn't really address the matters of the need for such thing. Elsewhere, there's statements that to support the electrification and the use of renewables, there is a need to increase battery energy storage because renewables are not 24-hour delivery. So there is a need for such systems, and that then prompted me to look at, well, where else are such systems? And the one that I noticed particularly was the one at Trafford Council recently approved. And at the time when they approved it, it was the largest, best site to go forward. And it was quite interesting because we're not the decider on this, we're a consultee. And also we can only decide on planning matters. So your opinion on whether it's good green or bad green is not a relevant planning concern. But what did come out of that Trafford, when it went through, there were two conditions which were raised, and these two conditions were about the safety measures and about the containment of any water that might need to be used should a fire occur, the water have to put out, for the reasons that you mentioned about that. So to me, those two reasons are the focus. And so I then looked at the planning application, and design and access statement is always a good place to start. It mentioned, and I won't quote because it only upsets you, the 53% of people who were neutral or in favour in the community consultation. I'm not going for that. The 21 hectares becoming community parkland is their attempt to offset this, the issuing of community grant fund, and that green land that was on the picture is not about carbon offset, it's about improved biodiversity is the reason they're promoting that. And they're identifying that bit of greenland will provide a green wedge between Chickwell and South Hill, Radipole, in other words, stopping the developments coalescing, which is a concern in both directions. That prompted me then to look at some of the responses, and there are lots of responses, and I recognise John's and various other people's in the responses. One I particularly looked at was Dorset Fire Service. And Dorset Fire Service haven't objected to the development because they've got to have a good reason. What they have said is that for this application to proceed and address properly the thermal runaway risk, there must be an over temperature monitoring system and protection system and a fire suppression system. And it goes on to talk about the 3 meters, not 6 meters. So it needs to be 6 meters. It talks about the need for an adequate water supply, because this will take a lot of water and you're not going to pump it out of Chafee Lake. So it needs water, either mains water or a big water storage area. The dual site access is also mentioned, and any fire water that's used to suppress the fire needs to be contained. And these were the recommendations from Dorset Fire Service. And my feeling is from a safety point of view, we should follow Dorset Fire Service and support their recommendations when we come to decide. And as the chair of the neighbourhood plan for Weymouth, you'll be pleased to know that we're not allocating this site that's also in the Chickerell Wildlife Corridor that's owned by Dorset Council. South of the Wessex roundabout, half of it's in Chickerell, half of it's in Weymouth. We decided that it's still going to go through full council for approval and endorsement. So the planning reasons you've given are noise concerns. And again, that's mentioned elsewhere, and you can buffer the noise concerns with appropriate trees and such like. The outside the defined development boundary, that's a bit moot. When I talked to Dorset Council about, can you do not housing outside the development boundary, they were quite convinced that you can do things that aren't just affordable homes, which I hadn't realised. The Chickerell Neighbourhood Plan policy number 10 and policy number 4 do apply. So that's just some information I'll put in front of councillors. And I'll come back if I may later. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councillor Bergman.
Is there anybody in the audience who's supporting it or from the company?
We did ask for a representative from the company. Yes.
Can I just ask, did you manage to get hold of?
It was a very last minute attempt at the end of last week.
Well, they knew about it.
We attempted, but I don't believe there was any.
Anybody else?
Right, well, yeah, as I see it, there are two really big issues here that we'd be concerned with. One, of course, is the noise, but that can be mitigated by trees and other landscaping features. But the main one is the fire. We're not experts on this. Maybe there isn't information out there, but we need more definitive information before we can really support it. But we have to give that caveat that possibly it's a good scheme if we have that information and if we're satisfied that there is sufficient fire suppression and risk there. We just don't know. This is the problem. But on the bigger picture, we need battery storage. We need storage. Otherwise, you can't have a green grid. And just to put some figures in perspective here, we're talking here about 400 megawatt hours. The biggest, was that what you told us? 2,400 megawatt hours. Okay, to put this in perspective, one of the biggest energy storage schemes in the country that's been operating for decades, the Genoric pumped storage scheme in Wales generates 3,600 megawatt hours. And that's been an essential part of the national grid for decades. Yes, the battery storage will soak up energy when there's a surplus in the grid. We don't know where it's come from. We hope it comes from renewables, but that's the point of a storage system, that it soaks up energy when it's surplus there. We've got to put it somewhere.
I'm sorry, it's not soaking up surplus.
Well, it is.
Hang on.
Sorry,
Carry on.
sorry. Yeah, the energy to charge the batteries has to come from somewhere. It comes when we've overproduction from renewables. It's right, and it puts it back into the grid when we need it. We're going to need more of these around the country. We have lithium, maybe there's a better technology, but we haven't got it at the moment. I'm a bit confused. I need to look into the chemistry of hydrogen fluoride, but where we get that from, because this is lithium. Lithium will react with carbon dioxide. One of the fire suppression measures here could be carbon dioxide. Lithium will react with that. So that won't be used like
fluorine in the electrolyte.
in the electrolyte. Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Another point here that's a bit of an aside is that figure that I've read is that a Tesla car contains 11,000 lithium batteries. So that puts in perspective, maybe we should do something about Tesla cars.
They're much smaller.
Yeah, okay, they're small, right, but there's still a lot there. But yeah, but my main point here is we need more information. We don't know enough about these components. Yeah.
Councillor Bell.
Just to pick up on some of the points that have been made, I've actually got a bit of a background in this sort of thing, being a geography graduate and teacher. So there are better technologies out there. It's just the scalability of them at the moment. So for example, vanadium batteries. Vanadium flow redox batteries are coming online. They're coming online quite slowly. That will be the way the technology moves. I am in support of battery storage sites. However, I do completely recognise lots of the points being made about this particular location. It's a shame Statera aren't here. We can ask them what particular reasons they have for moving with lithium, which is the pre-existing technology, and not vanadium, which is the way things are moving. There are companies such as Invinity Energy Systems working with Oxford University, I think it is, creating the Oxford Energy Hub, which is coming online at the moment, much smaller. So it's technology
As well.
yeah, so there are other technologies out there. The point about lithium is correct at the moment, but there's some quite exciting stuff going on with direct lithium extraction, lithium ion extraction from brines in Bolivia at the moment. So lots of these problems can be solved 5 or 10 years down the line. The issue is, to my mind, and this isn't necessarily a planning concern, I understand that's the remit of this, but just with the discussions being brought up, are we jumping in too early to this technology when other things are going to come online in the next few years? There is a lot of exciting stuff out there, and a lot of the problems that are being raised are in the process of being rectified. Just wanted to share that.
Yes, thank you, Chair. A number of interesting points have been raised by our speakers, which I found interesting. But the overriding issue, as far as I'm concerned, is that unfortunately we are where we are, and that in global terms is not a jolly position. And I really wish we weren't here in this position, but we are. And so I will support the comments of my friends, the councillors here, and the points that they have made. I wish, referring to the gentleman there and his comments about our individual responsibilities, I wish that more of us would and had and will very rapidly begin to take it seriously, our lifestyles. I fear that that isn't going to happen, and even if that does happen rapidly, then we are still in a very difficult position. Renewable energies are coming on stream. By their nature, they are intermittent, and therefore the eminently sensible thing to do is to go for battery storage. Now, there is a problem in Dorset that we've been told that renewable projects are not taking place because of the deficiencies of the national grid. Ray Bryan from Dorset, the leader in the environmental and etc. area, has told us that. And so we in Dorset need to be making our contribution towards the national effort. And for reasons that we won't go into, we have not got wind turbines here. We've got solar, and we need to ensure that the solar element can be properly stored. It's not a choice which I would like to make in an ideal world, but in an ideal world, we wouldn't be where we are now. So there are difficulties. I think that the difficulties are surmountable. I can understand that there is a problem with from the fire. I live in Weymouth, but where there are national priorities, and I do believe this is a national priority. I know that you won't find that in the government literature because the government is some way behind where we should be. But I really do believe that this project is important and should go ahead. I will be supporting the recommendations that Councillor Northern has put forward regarding the caveats that we have over fire and water, etc. But I think it's really important. And in terms of the land, which was also mentioned, my final point is that I will be pleased to see land being used for something which is going to take us forwards rather than a continuation of monoculture supported by pesticides. Thank you very much, Chair.
Councillor Waiting.
Thank you, Chair. Many of the points have been made, so I'm going to go through what. Well, thank everyone for coming to speak. It's picking out what is actually a planning constraint we can actually object to, not what we'd like to see. There is a difference. And unfortunately, where various government departments, as John Pate said, haven't yet published guidance, we can't object on the basis of guidance we wish they'd written, because it's not there yet. So we have to work with what's actually been adopted at the moment. I think almost all the points we made. The only point I made, which I thought Graham was going to pinch and he didn't quite get to, is they're building quite a few of these and and solar farms having trouble connecting them to the grid, because that's actually the hold-up in the development process. In some ways, you could say we're fortunate that Chickerell is actually a major node on the national grid. It has two significant cables that meet at that substation. And I guess we benefit because if one of our main supply cables went down, our communities would continue to be supplied by the other one, because we're fortunate enough to be on there. Communities that at the end of the line don't have that privilege. If there's a fault on the line, they're cut off. But because we're at that national grid, from a national grid point of view, it's the logical place to put a battery storage point, because you've got that redundant cabling coming in and out, which isn't really what we want to hear, but that is what it is. I did some personal research into the fires and things. According to the stats I've discovered, there are 161 of these sites already in the UK. There's been one fire at those, which was in Liverpool in 2019. At that fire, a single container burnt. The fire was contained to that. Took them 10 hours to put out the one container. Yeah, that's partly the strategy is contain the fire,
Yeah.
rather than try and put it out. Because
Carry on, Lee.
sorry,
So, yeah, although, yeah, within the UK, the statistics are what they are. Obviously, you can look around the world and find other examples. Whilst we've been talking, I have checked. The Environment Agency submitted their comments on this. Their comment is no objection, provided the following conditions are applied. The Fire Brigade, very similar. They put in some conditions.
And look at the second reply.
Yeah. Thank you.
There was one in yesterday, I believe. I'm also looking, we previously commented on another BESS at this site, a smaller one, a 60 megawatt one. Our comments to this council, did we submit this in May, was we support a robust approach to the environmental impact assessment, including fire safety and water usage and firefighting, and wish to see this evidenced. That's what we said last time. And to be fair, there aren't many good planning reasons to object to it. I'm going to agree with my colleague over there, I think.
Could I make a proposal or
I would just,
sorry, pardon me.
one of the things that we're going through at the moment as a council is a neighbourhood plan. And we would hope that if things go against our neighbourhood plan, we would, our objections would be registered. A Chickerell neighbourhood plan, this does not meet their plans. The site forms part of an approved wildlife corridor, which was identified in the Chickerell neighbourhood plan. The other thing is the area is not identified for any development in the Chickerell neighbourhood plan. So I wouldn't support this purely on those grounds. What's the point of going through a neighbourhood plan process and then going entirely against what the neighbourhood want? That's but there are picking up on what Councillor Bell said, I don't think this site is quite ready yet. I think with the technology that's coming along, it will be. The solar farm that wanted to come in Dorset they couldn't do it because they couldn't connect to the national grid. So the farm was done away with. The other point is that, if I'm correct, the guidance says that these sort of storages should have renewable energies connected to them. And that's why they're looking at more solar panels on industrial sites. But my main reason is neighbourhood plan says no, and I think we should support the neighbourhood plan, or what's the point of them? But I'm sorry, I can't come back, guys. It'll be time for the councillors to make up a proposal, and then we will vote on it, whether it's no objection or we have an objection. Councillor Bergman.
Thank you. Just obviously very interesting issue here. I'm not an expert like Councillor Bergman, and you made some very good points there, but I have looked into lithium a little bit because of the development in Cornwall, where they're developing a lithium mining site. And I am aware about the hazardness of the nature of lithium when it's mined and subsequently after it's been mined. For me, we've got a planning application here. And it is as a standard, so this is it basically, where we have a distance of 3 meters and it should be 6 meters. The company is not here to support it, which is a problem for me. There are planning guidance, it does contribute some planning guidance, particularly noise, nature conservation. And I agree with Councillor Dickinson, it is outside the boundary and we've got to support Chickerell's position on the boundary. So for me, I would object against this.
Right, councillors, do we have a proposal?
I'd like to frame one, and I find myself, your points made about neighbourhood plan are very pertinent. The plan policies, land of local landscape importance is a large area, so this is part of it, not the totality of it. The Chickerell Wildlife Corridor, it's actually on the map in the Chickerell plan, it's called the Radipole Lake North-South Corridor, I think, just looking at the map. Again, it's a corridor which is, which actually runs through the Persimmon potential site as well as this site. So the corridor could be maintained if that land isn't developed for housing. And that isn't what we're considering, that development proposal yet. I'm not sure it's come forward or it's certainly not mature. So what I'd like to propose is that we support the principle of the site coming forward, but we insist that the Dorset Fire Service comments must be satisfied by the local authority. And we note the concerns about the Chickerell neighbourhood plan policies 4 and 10, because I think those are important. We also note the need for noise suppression, because that isn't mentioned in the Dorset Fire Service. And I'm picking up on what one of the gentlemen said was, I think it is of a large scale. And I think some reassessment of the scale, particularly the proximity of the northern part of the site. So we just wind down a moment, Charlotte, to Chickerell Road, Cold Harbour Lane. There we go. So that top left bit could be reduced in size, I believe. So noting that this will be coming to the Dorset, South Dorset planning group because of the level of objections and the councillor objections. I'm confident it will get fully addressed at that meeting. But my view is that we need to encourage such sites to come forward, but make sure that they are safe to residents. Thank you.
So what exactly is your proposal?
So the proposal is that we support in principle.
Yeah.
Yeah. the best development, that we insist that the Dorset Fire Service comments are fully addressed.
Yeah.
That we note concerns about Chickenham neighbourhood plan policies 4 and 10. We note concerns about the noise needing to be mitigated. And we recommend reassessing the scale with respect to the proximity to Cold Harbour Lane. So I think it can be improved.
Do we have a seconder for this proposal? We have a seconder from councillor Lambert.
Can I make a point of procedure?
Yes,
I think process wise, this committee shouldn't just say, well, if they do this, this and this, we agree. What we should say to the developer, you've got to do this before it comes back again, and then we have a look at it. So it's a point of process, yeah. We are, all right, we might not make the final decision, Dorset does, but we are very, very much involved in the decision. And I don't think, I don't think it's good enough to say to the developer, well, if you do these, we'll agree it. I think we should say to start with, these are things you've got to do, come back here and then we'll discuss it again.
So as a point of process, conditions can be set when we report back up to Dorset Council. And we're effectively setting a bunch of conditions. So you're right that they're conditions.
does anybody have any amendments? Yeah, councillor Bell.
Something in there about looking at best solutions with significantly lower fire risk. Such as vanadium. It is a thing. There's a thing, and fire risk is, I think,
Are you happy for that?
as close to zero as you can get.
Yeah.
I don't know
I read off
enough
that.
about vanadium. I do know a lot about lithium because my son is a geologist looking for lithium. And lithium is the way that the mass technology is going. This is utilizing the car mass technology into an industrial setting.
So do you want to bring it as an amendment
Yes.
to the proposal?
I'm happy for it to go forward as an amendment.
Yeah,
I'll back that. Yeah,
well, if
if I'm happy to accept it into it, yeah.
we can just add it to the full proposal.
So
Yeah.
to look
So
at other
I'll
technologies.
ask Charmaine to read it out. This is the proposal that we're going to vote on then.
Weymouth Town Council support the principle of the site, but insist Dorset Fire Service comments are addressed. We note concerns regarding Chickenham neighbourhood plan 4 and 10. The noise concerns need to be expressed. Noise,
Mitigate.
yeah.
You want to correct the way that you
Reassess the size of site due to proximity of Cold Harbour Lane and looking at better solutions that have less fire risk, e.g.
Are we all happy with that? Right, we have a proposer, councillor Noel, we have a seconder in councillor Lambert. All those in favour of the proposal? 5-4. All those against? 2. That's it. There's no. Right, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, councillors. And the public. Yes.
Very much. No, I also agree with the gentleman there. Technology is moving so fast. Within 5 years, 50 years, the idea of giving away land.
Okay then, guys, moving on. We now come to item 5 still. And the late applications, is there anybody that would like to discuss any of these items in item 5?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Because if not, we can move all these items into item 6. Yeah.
If I could propose, we move those forward to item 6.
Yeah.
And then we hoik Weymouth Harbour wall repairs out of item 6.
Yeah.
back to item 5.
Yeah,
I can
just
do
for
it
discussion.
as a double proposal.
Yeah. Did you get that?
All those items 6 are way
Yeah.
apart.
let's go.
The seconder.
Me. I'll second it. Yeah, very good. And it's unanimous. So we can now come to the harbour wall repairs. Yeah?
Yeah.
Can you get that one?
Yeah.
Right, Luke, would you like to kick off then, please?
Well, basically, I don't wish to object to them repairing our harbour walls. Unsurprisingly, I think that's essential and long overdue. My concern is the lack of detail on the railings. I don't think we can quite say they have a poor track record for railings around the harbour, but we all know what I mean. The plans they've supplied are so large scale, I cannot tell what they're proposing to do with the railings. I would very much hope they're going to retain the existing railings. I hope they're in the same alignment that we're currently in relative to the wall, but I can't tell from these. So basically, I would like us to not object to the wall repairs, but I would like us to request more detail on the nature of and location of the railings when they are reinstated.
Is that a proposal?
That's my proposal.
I'll second that.
Could I ask a question?
Of course you can.
Thank you. I tried to read and understand this and I found it quite difficult to navigate through. They talk about raising the wall, but they don't talk about what they're going to do with the pavement. Are they raising the pavement as well, or will there now be a wall and then the railings on top of the wall? I found that quite difficult to understand, but I may be being stupid and not quite understanding what they're really proposing. Did anybody else see that?
If all these comments are in relation to the railings in particular, what we can do is speak to the case officer, I can speak to officers and
Yeah.
council and get more details specifically around railings. So we've got the background, right?
So I don't have a problem with the wall, the walls being raised. I just thought that they ought to have said so, that there'll be a wall and then the railings and the pavement will be lower than the wall. Good, it is in the conservation area. But it has to be done.
Which is a plan that may be more useful.
Really, really strong.
You have handrail alignment.
I'm struggling to work out that looks about a metre from the rail to the.
They have got diagrams such as this.
Yes.
Which one is that?
This plans wall 4 elevation after refurbishment. That,
Yeah, on the map.
Elevations.
but what we're struggling with is mapping that against what Luke's got on his screen, which is the plan. from
The previous tab we had, Charmaine,
And matching it across.
if you could you just scroll down a bit? There's a scale bar at the bottom. There. Now, if you look at the wall compared to that scale bar, I think the green, solid green line is the edge of the wall, and the line with the dots on it is the railing. But they look like they're nearly a metre apart by that scale bar to me. So, and I'm trying to work out why is the railing a metre back from the wall edge? Are you just creating a nice ledge for seagulls? And you can't, in my opinion, that diagram just not adequate to be able to decide what they're up to. which is the point of planning, surely they should provide adequate diagrams that we can understand.
So shall we ask for,
So your proposal gets over that by saying, yes, we want them, and we have no objection to the actual planning, but could we please have more details on the railings?
a visualisation rather than a plan?
Well, yeah, both,
Yeah,
just everything.
so have you got that?
Yeah, that's fine. I'd say looking at the plans, they're just technical drawings from an engineering company, WSP, so that's all they're literally, you can ask for visualization, but I'm guessing WSP produces, you know, we're gonna ask. And they know the person at WSP that's been dealing with it, so I think that.
I just don't want another railing fiasco.
No.
Scaffolding.
So could you just repeat the proposal?
So
Yes.
we're gonna support the application.
Sure.
But separately, I'm gonna contact officers and request more details of the nature of the new railings and plans aren't adequate.
So,
I'm seconding
yeah.
Could I just? Where's the date for consultations on this? Why is it due by the 12th of October? In theory, they could just go approve it on the 13th of October.
We'll raise the point.
Because it's a Dorset Council application, wouldn't it have to go to one of their subcommittees?
Yes, that's true. So yeah, if we could put a comment that we support the works to the wall, but we would like more detail and clarity,
And visualization.
yeah, on the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I was separately trying to seek that clarification because we know what will happen.
So that's the proposal. We have a second there. All those in favour?
Yeah.
That's unanimous. Is there any other items in item 6 that anybody would like to talk about? No, so then could I have a proposal that we, for all the remaining item 6?
Just notice I probably is declaring all interest.
It's fine if it's no comment. Don't worry.
Way Valley campus. small
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. It's non-pecuniary.
It's a fence.
Yeah.
Technically, it's peculiar.
So, do I have a proposer that we think of no comment for all the rest in item 6? A proposal from councillor Wakeling, seconded by councillor Northern. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Now we've come to item 7. And this is the tree-related planning applications. And that the committee agrees the standard response. Weymouth Town Council supports this application, however, requests that at least 2 climate-tolerant trees are planted in lieu of each tree that is proposed to be removed for the above tree-related planning applications. Do we stick with our normal? Yeah. So I'll propose that. I'll second that. Seconded by councillor Bergman. All those in favour? Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Item 8, planning applications respond under delegated powers. There aren't any. No. Item 9, we have none. Item 10, we have none. Item 11, we have none. Item 12, we have none. We now come to item 13, which is a traffic regulations orders for zebra crossings on Radipole Park Drive.
May I suggest that councillor Bell introducing this?
Yeah.
So it was myself and Friends of Radipole Park and Gardens that sort of started these discussions. Myself and why am I struggling to remember his surname? Mr. Barrow, Councillor Barrow, met with FORPAG, Friends of Radipole Park and Gardens. There was a discussion around. We've got these amazing renovations going on. We've got increased footfall. We've got a cafe going in. We've already got a nature reserve on one side, retail at one end. It's linking retail to town. We've got children using it, elderly using it, and the road is a hazard for pedestrians. We've got block lines of sight out of various crossing points, and no protection for pedestrians. So that was sort of where this came from. Then in my discussions with Friends of Radipole Park and Gardens and also the councillors in the surrounding areas. If you've looked at the document, you'll see it's supported by, I think, or pretty much, or I think that is all the surrounding councillors. So this is something that the local population want. We certainly need to make it safer. I cross there regularly with a pram and a 5-year-old, and we're wrestling the kids, and there's speed traffic coming down, and you're trying to get across to something designed for children to use. It is currently very, very tricky. This was also mentioned in my class today, and all the students straight away said it's really hard to see when you're crossing there, sir. So there is a long-standing issue and it needs resolving. I'm aware that in the borough days, proposals went forward that then weren't actioned. So it's kind of just trying to bring that back to life a bit and improve safety for the pedestrians there. There's 5 proposed sites for zebra crossings, which I realise is very high. However, it's a prompt for discussion. So that's why we brought that forward. But fundamentally, it's for safety of pedestrians and also drivers, because they are on occasion having to deal with pedestrians stepping out from unsighted locations. It has a perception nightmare.
Can I just ask a question here, because that's not a through route. It's not a through route. Is there a reason why that couldn't be a 20-mile-an-hour limit?
It's a 40-mile.
It is at the moment,
yes. You can't go straight from a 40 to a 20.
Okay. Can you go down to a 30?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Now, the reason I didn't put that on the proposal is that requires a longer term piece of work. with the
Yeah.
Community speak.
Yeah, yeah.
So this was
Understand.
an angle into the conversation.
Yeah, right, yeah, 30 won't make much difference, 20 would, but that's another process. This is something that we've done fairly quickly.
Yeah, you're not proposing electron, it's just the painted, yeah,
Yeah,
we
that's
can do our beacons.
Yeah.
Councillor Bowden.
Fully supportive. Don't you want lights instead? So for example, at Bowleys, we've got, which is potentially dangerous, we've got lights there. I know it works very well, very safe for pedestrians, very safe for children.
Yeah,
So
so,
this obviously needs something, isn't that, would you rather have that?
yeah, ideal world, absolutely. I did talk with Highways at Dorset beforehand, and constantly goes back to funding and the lack of. Yeah, ideal world, absolutely. We've got a control crossing point down in the McDonald's, down in KFC. At the end by Coronation Crescent, that crossing there would be my other main candidate for that, certainly. For all the same reasons that is obvious to all of us.
Well, I think start with what you can get.
Yeah.
You know, you want 100%, you're getting 75.
Yeah.
Let's get the 75% in, and then you can work on the 25% later.
Okay. Yeah. It doesn't particularly getting lights, it's just, this is for the moment, yeah, absolutely.
Just to highlight the other reason why this is coming forward now, is to reiterate, we've got all those developments going on, we're expecting footfall to go up.
Yeah.
We hope it goes up, that's the point of what we're doing, so we need to make it safe for the pedestrians then.
I'm glad that your pupils call you sir, there's always that these days in schools.
Oh, yeah, they do.
So would anybody else like to talk on this, or should we go straight to the members are asked to consider the request and agree whether or not they support the request?
I read this and I was like, fine. I'm quite sure Dorset won't fund 5 in less than a kilometre. And I wonder whether we'd be more pragmatic to put in a slightly reduced number, like 2. It's because the other thing I thought was actually nothing on the other side of the road. And I cycle quite frequently up that cycle lane, but it's a river. There is no reason generally for people to be crossing that road. And if the park's nice and wonderful and updated, they'll stay in the park. I'm sure you want to respond to that. But in the vast majority, it's a long straight road and a long straight cycle path. And I do cycle that way to Morrison's, etc. And yeah, it's quite well used. I could agree with a crossing at the top end, where it comes back to residential, back to the orchards, because I think that is actually where, if you were a pedestrian, you probably wouldn't walk along the 40-mile-an-hour road, you'd cross into the park at that point and then walk to the park. That I could agree with. The other one's the one in the middle, which is actually where the cycle route takes a right turn to Weymouth College, because that's about the only place I would cross it in the middle. You'd either cross it at McDonald's and walk through the park, or you cross it at the far end, there isn't a reason for you to cross out of the park in the middle of that long straight road with nothing on the other side of it. So if I was to make a counter proposal, which would be we ask for 2 crossings, one in the middle where the cycle lane crosses, I can't remember what route number is, 7 maybe, and one at the top end, because there is a crossing already down at McDonald's. And I can't imagine them putting 5 crossings in less than a kilometre road. I do note a zebra crossing in the UK, I believe, has to have Belisha beacons, the orange lollipops. So it isn't just a case of painting it. There is expense to it. I can imagine they're £10,000 each, just because these things tend to cost that. So I think pragmatically, I would like to support Matt's proposal, but I think 2 is a more pragmatic request than 5.
Right, councillor Norton.
Yeah, I use the route quite a lot, mostly cycling and turning off the cycle path on the pavement into Redpole Park Gardens. There are various places you want to turn off because of the different features, and there'll be even more when the development takes place. Reasons for turning off is quite tricky, and I do support that going forward. There's also the idea is to bring more people through to this area by walking from the neighbourhoods. So it's to pull people from the town up to the park and then provide that safety. So there are people who walk that route into town, and sometimes you walk through the park, and sometimes you walk by the, and sometimes you crisscross. So I thought 5 was a lot, but I think 5 is in the expectation of it being reduced. I think, therefore, what I'd like to suggest is that we say that with priority given to number 1 and number whatever, with the 2, yeah. We just add that into that so that it sort of intimates that there's a lesser position, but there you go.
Before we come back, Graham, have you, or Tim?
No, that's
No,
fine. Yeah, I think it's.
Matt?
I would think that's like conversations would come in before I arrive tonight. But number 1, yes, that's got to be a priority. My other one would be number 2 by the Children's Climbing Frame. If you've got young kids with you, you are cycling along the cycle path on the other side of the road because it's the flattest place where you can get further away from the road. If you're on the other side, you're in boggy field. Or rough terrain, and with little ones, they want to be on the smoothest path they possibly can be because they're terrified of everything. So you're bringing your kids down that side. That's the reason you're on the other side of the road, and then you can cross over into the park area, into the playground area, which is also where the cafe is due to be, I believe. So that is likely to be a high footfall area. So if we are going along the lines of prioritisation, I would certainly have number 1 and number 2 as my top 2. Put these right up there on our wish list, and then I completely understand if we put the others as maybe secondary requests.
Well, we need a proposal, guys. Can anybody word a proposal?
I support the words that are on there and suggest that it says priority given to items 1 and 2, and if possible, additional crossing points.
So members of they support the request for 5 sets of bottoms with priority to numbers 1 and 2. The last bit there.
Possible consideration of
3, 4 and 5.
3, 4 and 5.
You happy with that, Matt?
Yeah, it's very reasonable.
Yeah. So that's the proposal. That, are you going to put that forward, Luke?
Matt?
No, Matt's is the other one, all 5, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm happy to propose that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have a seconder? And seconded by councillor Wakeling. All those in favour? And it's unanimous. Item 14 is information items. Would anybody like to mention any of the items on there?
Yeah, usually I do. Very briefly, the neighbourhood plans will be going, has been approved by the steering group. and will be going for endorsement to full council on the 18th of October. The information will shortly be circulated and put online. It is an amended plan, and it will be going out for 6 weeks of public consultation. This is consultation by the statutory authorities plus residents and businesses in Weymouth. And the council, the plan is big. The report that's being made to council summarises the changes that have been made and why they've been changes. So I'd suggest people start there. Thank you.
Just to report, Chairman, on Power Fuel and the Power Fuel Review. The town clerk is organising a meeting with 4 representatives, to include myself, the mayor and David Harris, the leader of the council, and
Lucy.
Lucy, to meet before it starts.
Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. Yeah, excuse me, on the same subject. Can I commend the team who got the objection letter together? I think it shows Weymouth Town Council in a very good light, considering we are not full of experts, etc. So I would like to commend the team for that. I don't know if anyone would agree with me on that.
Oh, no.
Thank you.
Yeah, and
There's no emergency items?